Welcome back to the Hank's Strange Situation, Lifestyles of the Locked and Loaded.
Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. We are here in Hastings with Sam Andrew. Yeah, not far from St. Augustine.
About 12 miles.
Yeah, at the new shop.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you guys, I've been getting comments. Guys are like, oh, when are you going to do a video with Sam Andrews? Here we are.
Finally.
Yes. So we'll do a few videos here. They'll be shorter than you guys are used to, but you know, we'll get some good content out to you guys through this. What do you want to cover today, Sam?
Well, you and I had previously spoken about many of the exotic skins that we work with.
Yeah.
And these are some of the favorites that we get the most call for.
Right.
So we're going to show some of those options. And I thought today we'd build a holster out of the spinal Stingray. That is running away one of my top most popular.
So you guys will get to see this in 4K for the first time, because I think back in the days we obviously were not doing 4K.
That's true.
Yeah, so where do you want to start?
Well, I laid out a few of the skins here.
Yeah.
For popularity, these are the most frequently requested. We have elephant, alligator, shark.
Oh, this is shark. Okay,
This is shark.
I would not have guessed that.
And there are actually two stingrays. There's the giant ray, which has the diamond in the middle. And then there's the spinal stingray, which has the row of the white dots, or they call them pearls, running down the center. These animals have like armor. They are bones.
Oh, this is bone that we're looking
Knobs
at.
of calcium
Okay.
as their outer protection. And so working with this is a bit different from working with any regular hide. You can work these skins just like cowhide leather. Same process, same tools. Stingray is in a league of its own.
Okay, so that's why we're going to take a look at some of the differences.
The elephant is one of the toughest skins. You can't scratch it.
Right, but it has a very nice...
It's a nice
it feels
feel.
cool too.
It's
Yeah.
flexible, but the tensile strength is amazing. Alligator.
Why is alligator? Because this is probably the most popular, right?
This is probably the most easily recognized of all the exotic skins. And people have been seeing, purses, boots, belts, everything made of gator for years. And so it's very classy for holsters.
Okay, so classy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then shark. This, like the elephant, extremely tough. Because shark skin is actually a modified cartilage. It isn't skin like your skin or mine.
Oh, okay.
Because, a shark has a cartilaginous skeleton.
So
very,
if you want that
very
tough look and then there's still a cool pattern in it.
It's a tie between the elephant and the shark for the toughest of all skins.
What has the biggest variety of colors, or can you change colors
We
on all
can
of them?
change colors. We can get things in different colors. But Stingray is actually armor. It is heavy knobs of bone.
Yeah.
And people just can't wear them out.
Now, obviously, we're not going to give you guys a lot of details, but if you do want to see the details of building a holster, they can just go look at some of the... You're going to cover the differences, right?
Exactly. We had previously made what I call a saddle style, a pancake style holster in another video. I was going to do one today in the spinal Stingray. We don't have to go over every tiny detail because that's already been done, but just characteristics of using this skin over the more regular cowhide.
Okay, so maintenance-wise, what do we do with these?
There's really very little that needs to be done to the extremely tough hides. If your gator gets a bit scuffed, you can take a little bit of neutral shoe polish and a soft cloth and shine it back up.
Okay.
Very important, though, not to use too much.
And then everything else is basically easy. I'm guessing this is the lowest maintenance that you need on those
Right.
things.
Well, any of the very tough skins, you hardly ever need to do anything.
All right, so where do you want to start, Sam?
Well, I'm going to clear these away to have a place to work, and we'll get going on the holster. To begin making the holster for our 1911, we have to cut out the structural leather parts for the body. Because the Stingray skin is very, very flexible, it needs to be bonded with the cowhide for structure so it can hold a shape. Going to lay out and cut the patterns.
And we're doing a 1911 here.
A 5-inch 1911, because when you come to guns that get decorated, that get fancy grips and holsters and things, I have found the 1911 and the single action Army revolver are the most frequently done.
No one's doing
all
Stingray
firearms.
for their Glock?
I actually have made some.
Yeah, I would think it would be nice.
Absolutely. But when you come to barbecue guns and you're showing off,
Yeah,
the 1911 is still
I think so.
leading the pack.
If you're getting dressed up and all that.
Yeah. Now, very critical when you're doing a spinal Stingray, you have to have a center line. I've got these two marks on the back of the pattern here that I can line up with the spinal run on the ray skin. And finding exactly where it is in the center takes a bit of trial and error. Your first effort, the line might be off a little, and we want to get it exactly down the middle.
Okay.
So that just came from years of doing.
Okay. So you built that into the pattern.
Exactly.
Okay.
Now,
And we're talking about this just for anyone who wants to know. Yeah, this is, what did you call it again?
spinal Stingray.
So, and then this is the spinal column right here.
What it was when the animal was swimming around, that was a row of needle-sharp spikes running down its back. So after they dye the skin, they use a surface grinder to grind the spikes away and expose the true bone color of the base. I've been trying to get an uncut skin with the spines to show people where it starts, but they don't import those.
That creature's not swimming around looking this good.
No, he got a dye job and he got his spines polished off.
Okay, his afterlife is better.
Yeah, he's kind of an off-white in nature. And then we're cutting it the way we've shown on prior videos, where I'm using the old scrap carpet underneath so I can cut through in one pass. And by running the blade away from myself, if I slip, I'm less likely to go running for the bandages. And it's also easier to control than pulling toward you in the old-fashioned way. Just use short sawing motions and sometimes use my index finger as a fulcrum to sort of rock the blade back and forth. Then all out in one pass, and we're good to go.
Yeah, so if you've never seen any of these videos, this is just like a old school.
Just a
simple
scrap
trick.
of carpet, and it's getting scrappier by the day. I need to find some replacements.
I'm sure. Have you had that piece for a long time? Or you're
Long
tearing
time.
them up? Okay. I don't know if it's Berber or what it is, but
It was cheap and free, which are my favorite characteristics.
there you go.
If I can, I like to turn the material so I'm pretty well just cutting away from myself. You can go sideways in other directions, but you have more control, like this.
Yeah, what's interesting, Sam is constantly packing up stuff, moving stuff out of the way. Is that just helps you with the speed, you think?
Right, gives you room to move things around. Now, there are some places where the bone knobs kind of taper off to a more leathery back, so we want to avoid that when we're laying out the holster. Get all the pretty parts on there. The only thing that will work for marking on Stingray is a chalk stick. You can get these at Hardware, Home Depot, anywhere. And I take it to the belt sander and just grind it into a point, so it works like a stylus. And the one critical tool that makes working with Stingray possible are these little Weiss shears. Again, I buy these at Home Depot. They're made for sheet metal. They've got fine, fine serrations on the cutting blade, and they go through the ray like it was paper. I first attempted to use my knife when I made my first ray holster. Absolutely destroyed the blade on the knife.
Oh, okay.
This is so hard. Then to get my center line, I turn it over and I mark each end for the middle of the row of the pearls. Connect the dots. This way, when I'm putting my holster on there, I have the two little impressions that I made when I was laying out the pattern to line things up so that the row of the pearls will go right down the center line of the weapon when the holster is finished. Trace it around to give myself a little guidance. And now we'll glue the ray to the body shell and glue the lining in for the back part. We discussed this in the other videos. This is barge cement. that I use to glue things together. It's from the shoe industry. This is what holds the soles on your sneakers. Very, very, very strong, but made with chemicals you don't want to be breathing, so have a lot of good ventilation if you're using barge. Let that set a minute to get tacky.
I noticed there's a digital marking on these now.
Well, the hides are all marked for their square footage. They put it on the back.
Okay.
And sometimes you'll see it, sometimes not. Since it's being glued to the inside, I don't think anybody will notice.
Oh yeah, I could smell that stuff.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to make a long-term habit of breathing it. It sets up pretty quickly. We need to give that a minute or two so I can
Okay,
stick it together. Now that the glue is tacky enough to put together, I'm going to lay my holster part down on the ray, being careful to line up my marks, top and bottom, with the central line that I scribed on earlier. Use something smooth to press it down, especially around the edges, to make sure you're getting a very good seal. Then we'll let that dry. Same process for the lining in the back, although in this case, I rub it on the lining side. Just seems to adhere better. For trimming the leather lining, I like to use the longer, pointier knife. Gives you a bit more control in the corners and curves. I use the weight to keep it in place, and then just follow the edge, making sure my fingers are out of the way on the other side, although we always keep a copious supply of Band-Aids in the shop. For the ray itself, this is where the little Weiss shears come in again. They make very easy work of trimming off all along the edge of your leather. It isn't totally perfectly in line, so I'll take it to the belt sander afterward and true things up before stitching. But there's 3 things you'll absolutely need to work ray. That's the Weiss shears, a belt sander, and a Dremel tool. They all come into it because the edges on this are where all the detail is.
It is really tough. I could tell it was tough when you cut straight across, but these cuts are way more difficult.
Well, with this tool, it isn't too bad. In the beginning, I was just using some regular tin snips, which were not only inexact, but, I sweated.
Oh, really?
But you can tell.
Yeah, I mean, no, this is a tough hide, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Wow, okay.
It's got a bit of stiffness to it.
Yeah, yeah.
And then there's that very hard surface.
Yeah.
To get the edges straight and aligned, you need a belt sander. And you always give it a finger check, just to make sure everything is smooth and even. Now we need to make our grooves for stitching. On the Stingray, I'm going to use my chalk stick again to mark my stop and start marks from the pattern. For the leather, use the saddle groover to make the channel in which the stitches will run. For the ray, I set up one groover just for ray, and I ground this little trough around the back so I could tell them apart at a glance. This blade is sacrificial. I mean, it gets destroyed being dragged over the bone surface on the ray. And really all it's doing is giving me a scratch line to follow when I'm stitching.
Wow. Because
it isn't really possible to groove down into the bone surface of the ray. My old stitcher is a Landis 16. This machine's past 100 years old. There's no modern machines that can do the same stitching. Where a needle is normally on a sewing machine, this is an awl with a chisel point. The awl punches a hole in the material. The needle then stitches up through the hole from below, catches the thread in the hook, and stitches. This is the perfect machine for doing something hard surfaced, like the Stingray.
Yeah, you need something really tough.
Yes. People tell me they'll do it with modern, just straight needle machines, but it has challenges. Just have to set the presser foot height for the material. This machine is very analog. Everything is a bolt and a screw adjustment.
So no one's making machines this tough anymore.
Well, these machines were made for the saddlery industry. Back in the day when horses were still common transportation, there haven't been any of these made since before the Great Depression because cars came in, horses went out. Not a need for a big saddle industry. Fortunately, there's still a lot of these machines around and they are so tough, they just don't wear out.
Yeah, another 100 years from now, some dude will be, will be talking about it.
The grandkids can use it.
Yeah.
Well, now I have to change my thread because black material needs black stitching, otherwise it would look a little bit odd. Trim off the thread with the scalpel. I try to get the point of the blade down in the hole with the threads so we don't have any fuzzy ends poking up.
So this is the same grade thread, right? It's just a different color.
Exactly. We have a number of different colors. It's a number 346 bonded nylon, which is just thread that will last forever and is super strong. Now back to our belt sander. To true and round the edges. On the leather, I just need to get the edges even. On the Stingray, I use the sander to start the beveling process, to round the edges, as it's not something I can do with my regular leather bevelers. Now the belt sander has done 80% of the rounding and shaping, but to get the real fine finish, I'm going to use a Dremel tool with a stone. I use this triangular stone for the Dremel as it gets into tight corners and gives me a good deal of control. There, now our rounded edge is very smooth and glassy. You always want to do a finger test, not feel any jagged or roughness. Now for beveling, other than the ray side, I'm using my regular leather bevelers. Get that rounded edge. I'm very fond of these horseshoe brand bevelers. The blades are changeable. So if you wear them out, very easy to replace. They have a rounded cutting surface and make a very nice angle of bevel. Once beveled, we'll take them to the slicking bar, smooth out the edges, same way we do with cowhide, and get them all nice and glassy. Oh, something I failed to mention when we were stitching is as you're coming across, if you have one of the pearls right in the way of your stitching, you want to try and jump it, stitch on each side of it, not let the needle go right through and crack it, because that preserves it against further cracking later. Once we've got it beveled and machine slicked, I then give it a further slicking by hand, either with the wheel or with the smooth wooden handle of a tool. Get that really nice hard glassy edge on there. And because that tends to mushroom it a bit, I give it a rub down with something smooth, plastic, glass, anything will work. We mark the slots for the belt. Again, this is where the chalk stick is invaluable. I tried early on using pencil, pen. It was very difficult to see. For chopping my belt slots, I came up with a trick. To align it, once I get it over the pattern, It's now in shadow, so I use this little flashlight to see inside and make sure I'm aligned with my pen marks before I go smacking it. It's especially important on the ray because trying to see marks on the black surface in shadow gets a little bit tricky. Of course, we always want to sign the work. When you're helping the glue set, it's very important to use a rubber mallet or leather, something that won't mar the ray. I would stay away from steel tools. Now to sand this for a true edge and get that stitched.
So just quickly here with the machine, Sam, for the folks who are like looking at this and they do their own stuff, what kind of machines are they using? Do you know? Are they going by hand? What are they?
Going by hand would be a special kind of torment.
Right.
On Stingray.
Yeah.
But the cowboy machines, the Cobra machines, they're usually cylinder arm machines, and they're strong enough to go through the thickness. But they complain that sometimes the needles want to dance a little on the pebbly surface. It's harder for them to keep a straight row.
Yeah, they kind of deflect when they hit
exactly.
that. Yeah.
So
just like a predator would of this. Yeah. Okay. Got it.
That's
Very
why
cool.
having the chisel point at all, making the hole,
Makes a big difference.
oh, it is so much easier. Now to get this tented and bent over to attach the back, I'm going to wet the inside, get it good and soaking so that it's flexible enough to create the shape. To mark the stitching, I made a little template and I sharpened up my chalk stick so we'll get a finer line to follow. Now that everything is stitched together, it's back to the belt sander to round these edges. That's done a good 80% of it. Now to use the Dremel and the stone to get that fine. Edges are now nicely smooth. But we have this rather ragged edge around the belt slots, and we don't want to leave that there to scar the belt going in and out. So I'm going to give it a little grind around there. Now we've used the regular leather beveling tools to round the back edge. Back to the slicking bar, and we'll be ready for molding. Now it's ready to be molded to shape. In order to mold to the weapon, you have to have a dummy of the actual weapon. You can use the real gun, but that is hard on their finish. I love these cast aluminum dummies. They're the best ever. Unfortunately, the company went out of business a couple of years ago, so I'm hoarding the ones that I have. I have the water warm, not hot. You can still put a finger in it, but warm water penetrates better. I place the holster in gently so it floats on the top, letting the front, the Stingray side, get really good and limber. Once that's been in there for a minute, I'll dunk the rest of it. Place the weapon in. I set a dowel down along the top of the slide, make a tunnel for the front sight, and use the wax stick to get it all the way in place. I want to see just the tip of the wood showing at the top. Make sure that's sitting on top of the front sight. Now you can just mold it by hand. I like to press it first because it makes life so much easier. We have this hydraulic press with the heavy closed neoprene foam pads, very, very tough rubber. I put the holster on a triangular piece of it to help keep the arched shape that's going to fit the hip when the holster is worn. A couple more layers on top, good shaping, and start pumping. I leave it in there for about 5 minutes, really get a good press into the shape before I do the hand molding. It's now been about 5 minutes, so we're going to release the holster. The pressing has done about 80% of the shaping, but now we're going to hand bone it to get that exact detail look. Another dip in the water to keep things limber. I'll start on the back, on the leather side, follow the lines of the weapon. Now for the ray side, again, I'm using a sacrificial tool because I like to keep my normal molding tools very smooth to work on the leather. This eats up tools. So I keep this one, which can get all rough and gnarly, but it's for ray only. And rather than rubbing back and forth, when you're shaping ray, roll the material. You don't want to scrape by going back and forth. You apply the pressure in a rolling method and create your impressions this way. I'm letting part of it hang off the table to keep the curve to the finished product. This little wedge just opens out the bottom part where I'm going to install the tension retainer after it's finished, all shaped, and give it a little bit to dry. We'll be ready for the edge coat and the coloring. With the ray, to do the edges and also to paint over the stitching, you have to have something that's going to match it for color and shine. There's only one product I've found that works. I get this from Weaver Leather. It's the black tough coat, which is made for edges, and it is a perfect match for the ray. So this stuff is what I use always. It's tough, it's good, it's easy to apply. I first use it with my dauber just to do the edges the way I normally would edge coating any holster. We'll give that a minute to dry. And in the meantime, I take a fine paintbrush, and when you stitch the ray, you're breaking the surface. And sometimes the true white bone color shows through. So I just paint over the stitching lightly with the tough coat. And when it dries, everything will match and look lovely. This is also good around the belt loops, where I've ground the edges to true everything back to proper color. And now we'll let this dry. Now we're all dry, everything finished, colored. Only thing remaining is to attach the tension retainer. It's going to go there to grab against the bottom part of the slide. So I take my sharp awl and I just do this by eye. Work it through, because I can just see how far from the weapon it's lying. This is just like more trial and error. You just get a feel for how far it's supposed to stand off because of the thickness of the hose we're using for the retainer. Now I have my marks. I'll use my big punch to open it out. Use the open back screw post for the interior, 1/4 inch screw post drill through. The best material I've ever found for a tension retainer is fuel line. It's fiber reinforced, it's tough, it's very easy to work with. Use this awl to line everything up. Get my finish washer and screw in there. This allows you to tighten or loosen for the hold you want for the weapon. Be able to draw easily, but the gun hold in place when you want it to stay.
All right, so Sam, that was pretty intense.
Thank you.
Yes, good to see.
It's different.
Yeah, I know it is. It is very cool as well, because these look beautiful.
It's the most popular skin for a reason.
Mm-hmm. Do you do any different colors, or is it always just black?
Right now, black is what's available. There used to be other colors, but they no longer produce them.
And then I guess we can get a look here at, what you actually apply this to, different accessories. But is there anything else, like in this process, if folks are looking at this and maybe they want to do it themselves, they need to know? Or if they want to order from you as well?
We pretty well covered what the process is. If you're going to work with Stingray, have the right tools, be patient, and there's a lot of grinding involved.
Absolutely, yeah. I don't think Sam got like this overnight. So
Took a little bit of practice.
Yeah, there's been some loss.
Many things got thrown away.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so walk us through some of the different things you apply it to.
Well, of course, holsters are what we primarily make, but of course, along with that, the belts, bag pouches, everything to go with them. And one thing that the Stingray is also really good for is these custom 1911 grips, because that knobby ray really grabs the hand and makes a very solid grip, aside from looking spectacular.
Yeah, it gives you traction.
Well, that was the classic wrap for a samurai sword handle, was Stingray.
Oh, with Stingray. Oh,
Yes.
very nice. Okay, yeah, especially with the blood.
Right, I
there,
figured the
makes sense.
samurais knew a thing or two.
Yes.
We can make things in the giant ray, the spinal ray. It all comes out looking beautiful.
Tell me about this belt.
It's a belt.
Right, okay, awesome.
How much are you
I'll
gonna
take it
say
to
about
go.
Any of the Stingray belts, unless you've got about a 25-inch waist, it's going to have a splice. It takes 2 Stingray hides to make a belt,
Okay.
because they only come in one size.
Yeah.
And I haven't been that size since about the 8th grade, so yeah.
So obviously this is a custom thing that you do for folks looking for a nice belt.
This is 1.5 inches wide. That's the most popular size. We can do wider, like 1.75 inches. 1.25 inch dress belt doesn't look so good because you lose most of the black border, so you don't get a lot of contrast. Doable, but not ideal.
What is the craziest thing or the coolest thing you've done with Stingray? Firepower rig, maybe?
Well, I've done a number of Monarch shoulder holsters. And that's pretty flashy because you've got a lot of surface area. No one has asked for a firepower rig in Ray yet, although never say never.
Okay, they could always be a first on
Absolutely.
here. I'm guessing there's a couple of things we want folks to know. Sam did move, so you have a new address. Same phone number, though, I think,
Same
right?
phone number. We moved a year ago. We're well settled in.
Yeah. And it's all online if you guys want to see that, if you Google it. And then they need to call you. So how does someone put in an order?
They pick up the telephone and they talk to me.
Yeah.
Now,
The Egyptians used to do this in the olden days.
I'm old. I'm not changing my ways.
Yeah.
Me no text, no nothing.
Right.
And besides, with custom work, it's just so much easier to speak directly to people. There's things they don't even know they should be telling me. Details need to get right. So
yeah, I've seen you've got some letters around here, but I see those are also highlighted, which tells me you wound up having to call people and figure out exactly what.
Of course.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes it takes a few back and forth to get things just right.
Very cool. So thanks for taking the time to do this, Sam.
It's my pleasure entirely.
I know people out there appreciate it. And sorry it took us so long to get one to you guys.
We've all been extraordinarily busy.
Yes, absolutely. All right, thanks a lot, Sam. I
My
appreciate
pleasure
it.
indeed.
Thanks, and thanks to Lola on the camera.
Thank you so much.
We're out of here. We'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.